In 2023, I declared the Jinhao 82 my favorite entry-level fountain pen. It's very affordable, compact, offered in a wide variety of colors, as well as a few different nib offerings, and it uses a cartridge converter system that's very easy to maintain. Since posting that review, it's been offered in a few more colors, as well as a miniaturized version, and one other model that caught my eye. From the outside, this might look like a regular Jinhao 82, but if I remove the cap, we'll see something new. A glass nib. Yes, this is not a fountain pen. This is strictly a dip pen. The nib does not remove from the section, but if you want, you can unscrew the section from the body to turn this pen into a regular fountain pen. But we're not going to do Franken pens in this video. No, we're going to do something a little bit different. I have a decent sized collection of fountain pen inks, and I'd like to do some swatches with you today. So in this review, I'd like to go ahead and do our typical size comparisons with this and a few other models, and then get into some ink exploration. So stay tuned. Here's our Jinhao 82 dip pen, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we start sampling ink, I wanted to take a moment here to compare the Jinhao 82 dip pen with a few other models. Up top we have the Jinhao 82 fountain pen, and in its cap form both pens are virtually identical. In fact, all of the exterior components are interchangeable. And down below we have the Mahjong N8, which I reviewed earlier last year, and this pen is made out of a cracked acrylic. It does not feature a cap, but it has a little nub that acts as a roll stop. And as we'll see in a moment, this pen is also a dip pen. Let's take a look at these pens uncapped. All three caps unscrew to come off, and uncapped, both Jinhaos are identical in length. The Mahjong, on the other hand, is significantly shorter than either of the other pens, and it features a green tinted nib, which is unique to the acrylic. If you change to a different acrylic for the pen body, the tint is a different color. One other unique thing about the Mahjong N8 is that the nib can be unscrewed from the section and replaced with a regular number 5 size steel nib. The Jinhao, on the other hand, you would have to remove the section and swap in a section from a regular Jinhao 82. Let's take a look at these pens with their caps posted. The Jinhao 82s both have caps that post securely and deeply. The Mahjong N8 has a cap that screws to post, and it makes the pen significantly longer than it was in any other form. When it's posted, the Mahjong N8 is just a little bit longer than the Jinhao 82s. Okay, I think we're ready to do some ink swatching. Ink swatching is basically cataloging your ink collection on index cards. I like using this Exacompta index card, which is made by Clairefontaine. It's a very fountain pen friendly index card, which shows off a good amount of sheen of your ink. We're also going to use some Q-tips to help lay down extra ink on the cards. We'll of course use our dip pen to write down the names of each ink, some water to help clean off the nib in between, and then some blotting tissue. I'm just using paper towel to dry off that ink, and that's really just to help prevent cross-contamination between the different inks. Today I'm going to be using my Diamine ink collection, and Diamine is probably my favorite brand of inks. They just have a huge variety of different colors, and the vast majority of their inks are extremely well performing. I'll be sure to include chapter markers to help you guys jump between different inks if there's one that you're more interested in than another. And I'll also include a link in the description below to all of the materials that I'm using. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start off with this one, Passion Red, which is a pretty bright red ink from Diamine. It's in this 30 milliliter bottle, which they're not my favorite bottles. They're quite small, and the necks are pretty narrow. But luckily, the Jinhao 82 does seem to fit inside the neck. go ahead and dip our ink in the water, clean off the nib. Wiping off the nib now. I'm gonna grab a Q-tip, dip it into our ink, and then just do a swab to show off that color. Again, it is quite a bright red. And then in order to simulate a wet nib, I'm gonna dip it one more time and double down on the bottom part. And we'll do this on each of our ink swatches. Next up is probably one of my favorite Diamine inks and most likely one of their most popular as well. It's a deep red that's called Oxblood. Go ahead and dip our pen. I am getting low on this one, so you can tell it's one of my favorites. Just a super deep red ink. Do our Q-tip. Next up is another one of my favorite inks from Diamine. It's another deep red, and this one has a hint of purple in it. It's called Writer's Blood. Grab our Q-tip. Almost like a brown on this page. Next up is an ink that you've probably seen a few times on this channel. It is Diamine's Ancient Copper, which I've put into this Iroshizuku bottle. I prefer these bottles, especially for larger size pens. They're just a lot more stable and the neck is quite a bit bigger. This Ancient Copper is close to a brown or an orange. It's a pretty unique color. Grab our Q-tip. Next up is a brown by Diamine. It's called Saddle Brown. I haven't used this one very much. On the few pens that I've put this in, it's been extremely dry. Grab our swab. Again, we'll do a double layer on the bottom to help show what a wet flowing nib would look like. Next up, we have Diamine's Green Black, which is a nice deep green, and it was the first green ink that I have ever purchased. Before we cap it up, go ahead and do our Q-tip. You can see it's a nice deep green, kind of a muted tone. And I'll do a double on the bottom. Okay, now we're gonna start getting into the blues with Diamine, and I do really like their blues. I have quite a few of them. Towards the end of this video, I will show all of the swatches that we do so you can help compare them and see how the different colors are next to each other. This one again is Majestic Blue. Sorry about that, I bumped the camera a few times. Our next blue ink is called Midnight, and this was the first blue ink that I bought by Diamine. As the name suggests, it is a very deep blue ink. almost like a denim color. Our next blue ink is one of my favorite blues that I have. It is the Diamine Blue Velvet, and it celebrates their 150th anniversary. Comes in a larger bottle. I believe this is a 50 milliliter bottle. Closing out our blues, I have this Polar Glow from Diamine, which comes in a unique Inkvent bottle. It's part of their Inkvent series, which is a pretty cool series. If you haven't seen them, it plays on the advent calendars, but instead of using chocolates and toys, they do little samples of unique inks. And as I take it out of the box, you can see it actually is in a pretty unique bottle as well, which has these 4 little feet that come out. And it comes in a pretty large 50 milliliter bottle. This is also one of their most popular colors. It has a lot of sheen, which we'll see as the ink dries. I would say the initial color, or the base color of this, is actually close to a turquoise. But as I mentioned, it does have a lot of sheen. And again, we'll see that as this card dries, which we'll take a look at the end. And then to close out my Diamine inks, I do have a purple. This is called Imperial Purple. Okay, so here's my collection of Diamine inks. Starting at our top left, we have the Diamine Passion Red, Diamine Oxblood, and while I'm holding that, I'm going to bring up Diamine's Writer's Blood as well. These are two extremely popular red inks that Diamine makes, and we can see the Writer's Blood does have a little bit of a more of a brown or purplish tint to it. Ancient Copper, Saddle Brown, Green Black, Majestic Blue. This one does have a bit of sheen to it. Midnight, Blue Velvet, Polar Glow. This one, of course, does have a lot of sheen as well. This is known for a very high sheen. And Imperial Purple. So that's my collection of Diamine inks. If you enjoyed watching this, please let me know, and I will try to consider doing more swatches of my other brands in future videos. So what do I think of the Jinhao 82 dip pen? I really like this pen. I was a huge fan of the Jinhao 82, and this holds pretty much all the same characteristics as that pen. It's compact, it's comfortable in the hand, and it's available in a lot of different colors. Are there areas to improve with this pen? Of course. I would say probably the biggest one is the fact that you can't remove the nib from this section. That means it's pretty difficult to transform this into a regular fountain pen. You have to basically go out and buy a second Jinhao 82. Is that a deal breaker? I don't think so. I think at under $10, this is still an incredible value and a very useful tool to have if you do have an extensive ink supply and want to catalog those inks or just want to try out different inks. So that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.